Hello and welcome to the channel. For those of you that don't know me, my name is Tristan and you're watching Simply Aquatic. In this video, we're going to be tackling 5 things that I think you need in your fish room or shrimp room for that matter. Is it entirely based on my opinion? You bet it is. Is my opinion worth anything? Well, you can let me know in the comment section down below. Without any further ado, let's jump straight into it. So number 1 on our list, which mind you is in no particular order, is the water change hose. Now, first of all, you might be thinking, Tristan, this is a pretty common item. Why are you talking about this? I'm not specifically actually going to be talking about this one. I'm rather going to be talking about this one. Now, you'll notice that it doesn't look too different other than the fact it doesn't have a pump function on it. Well, that's because this is not a water change hose. It is in fact a petrol siphon. You're not going to find this at your local pet store. You'd probably have to go to something like a builder's or general warehouse store. Now, there's a couple of reasons why I like this so much and deem it worthy of this list. Firstly, if you're one of those old school guys that prefers to suck on a hose to get it started and end up with tank water in your mouth, well, good for you. For the rest of us living in 2025, we use automatic water change hoses. Now, if you're someone like me, durability is actually a serious concern. I have multiple different Carradina tanks running at very low pH levels. That's actually quite acidic water for those of you that don't know. And if you run enough of that through a thin hose pipe, it's eventually going to crack and break. Whereas this, designed for petrol, is definitely a lot more durable, and I can guarantee you running water through this, it's going to last a lot longer. Which brings me to my third and probably my favorite point. It's going to save you money in the long run. Finally, with unequivocal evidence, it definitely flows faster, speeding up your water changes and making your life much more efficient. So when you're done with this video, go out and upgrade your water change hose with a petrol siphon. I guarantee you will not be disappointed. You can come back later and thank me in the comments. That brings us to number 2 on our list, which is pretty much a very uncommon one. But I think it's going to apply to a lot of people that have fish rooms, or at least those that have multiple tanks. What I'm talking about is a waterproof solder kit. Why would you need waterproofing for any electrical wires? Surely they're not going to be hanging in the tanks. Well, obviously, please don't go and do that. That's very dangerous. The reason I recommend anyone that wants to even attempt doing electrical work to get one of these is because they make the job super simple. Basically what this is a short piece of heat shrink which includes waterproofing and solder inside. You heat it up until the heat shrink locks the wires together, then the waterproofing melts and seals it completely, and lastly your solder will also melt, ensuring a reliable connection. Now obviously we're not putting these wires in our tanks, but the reason I really like doing this is because it's a bulletproof method against other things that we don't always think about. In a fish room or around fish tanks, there's a lot of humidity. And if you think of something like an aircon or a dehumidifier that runs under quite a bit of load, there is a potential for the wires to warm up. Now, if these wires are placed in a conducive environment within your room or close enough to a tank, there is a potential for condensation to occur. Now, while this isn't inherently dangerous on a single line, it can definitely speed up other things like corrosion. I think there's absolutely no reason to not get yourself a set, considering the fact that they're really cheap and easily accessible. As the age-old saying goes, rather safe than sorry. Alrighty, so that brings us to number 3 on our list. Definitely in no particular order, but one of my favorite items or upgrades in the shrimp room has been an algae scraper. Now I know what you're going to say. Tristan, this is a super common item. I already have one in my fish room. In fact, you could just use a credit card. However, the reason I put this one on my list, if you look closely, you'll see it's actually got a razor's edge. After plenty of experimentation, I realized that the sharper the edge, the easier it is to scrape the algae. Now, if you're someone like me and you've got plenty of shrimp tanks, it's not only going to be more efficient and save you time, but it's also seriously going to negate the risk of scratching your tank, due to the fact that you need to use much less pressure to get the algae off. To keep this one short, the last thing I'm going to say about this algae scraper, other than the fact that it's quite cheap and readily available, is that they're super easy to extend. The one that I've got here is over 60 centimeters long, and it makes it really easy to reach any point in my tank without getting my hands wet. Now, I don't know about you, but any tool that helps keep my hands dry is definitely worthy of being on this list. Okay, on to number 4. Now this one I'm not going to talk about too much because it's pretty self-explanatory. It's not an upgrade, it's actually an appliance in its own right, and it definitely deserves a place on this list. You probably guessed it, I'm talking about the coffee grinder. Now you might be thinking, why would I need a coffee grinder in my fish room? Well, this is going to save you money in the long run. I've seen countless different products when it comes to fry food and shrimp powder, and at the end of the day, most of them are just really finely ground up products that you probably already have in your room. This thing is super cheap, easily accessible and readily available. It takes up very little space, doesn't use a lot of power, and it's going to save you money in the long run. I honestly can't give you a reason not to have one of these in your room, and you definitely won't be disappointed. Now, I know you guys are excited for this one, as am I, because it's always the climax of the video, the best for last. And I don't exactly want to say that I did keep the best for last, but it's definitely the item that made me the most excited and actually the reason why I made this video in the first place. If you haven't guessed it, we're talking about the microfiber cloth. I know, I can see you typing away in the comments already. That's a very common item. I already have microfibers in my fish room. Well, I guarantee you that you probably don't have a microfiber roll. This is something I discovered quite recently, and if you already have it, then I'm kind of judging you for not telling me about it, but this has changed the game for me. Normally when I buy microfibers, I get them in a pack of 5 or 10, and they cost about 150 to 200 bucks. This roll only cost me 250 bucks, and there's 50 microfibers on a roll, effectively bringing the cost down to 5 Rand a cloth. These things are so practical and have so many uses that I actually had to buy 2 rolls because my wife commandeered the first for her kitchen. And just listen to this. Isn't that a satisfying sound, knowing that you've got a brand new microfiber? I can use it in any of my tanks. I know that there's no soap on it. I know there's no dirt or pathogens on it. And if I've used the microfiber once or twice and I've lost track of it, or I'm not quite sure which one had soap on it, I've got peace of mind knowing that I can just grab another one and I'm not throwing away a ton of money. So if you didn't know about this, head over to a builder's or to any sort of warehouse store. Cleaning supply stores also have them. It's definitely the most cost-effective way to invest in microfibers. Well guys, that brings us to the end of this video. If you think there's something that deserves to be on this list that I didn't mention, please let me know in the comments down below. If you think I've been talking absolute nonsense, you're also welcome to tell me that in the comments. If you want to see more videos like this, including educational and entertainment content based on fish and shrimp and breeding and pretty much everything that aquarists like, make sure you hit that subscribe button. If you already have, you're awesome, continue being awesome, and I will see you in the next video.